Welcome, guys. I'm gonna get started at, let's say, 6:15. We'll get going. But if you can let me know in the chat if you're here for RBT or BCBA prep, that would be great. And all the resources that you'll find are they're in my bio, they're in my stand store. So any of the resources that you see, they're easily accessible. And they are accessible by price as well. The SDPEA framework that I post about a lot is $9.99, but it does come with a whole YouTube video that breaks everything down, almost like a mini course. And then the keyword guide that I'll show you guys, that's $2.99. Like after tonight's live, I'll probably put it back up to $4.99, but right now it's only $2. So the tools that I'm referencing are here, just so you can kind of see. So we'll go through these a little bit, and then I wanted to do something a little bit different tonight and go through an actual mock and try to apply some of these strategies to a mock exam. What is SDPEA? What is that? I'm a BCBA candidate retaker. Okay, yeah, we will go through that a little bit. It is essentially a framework and really a task analysis that gives you it's a decision-making tool. So when you're taking the test and you are down to those last two answers, that happens to most people, right? And they're struggling with, well, how do I know between these two which is the best one? It's meant to be a little task analysis that you can use that helps you search for the details and really use the evidence to answer the question. But it's a whole it's really a task analysis that's meant to shape your behavior. And I wanted it to be a tool to where it can redirect some of your panic in the moment. So when you're taking the exam and you're like, I don't understand what I'm doing, I think I don't know anything, you can kind of reframe your thinking and say like, okay, I might not know the answer right now, but I can write SDPEA on my paper and I can use that over and over and over as my decision-making tool. So I kind of go through the whole explanation of like how to use it. And I designed it to where, it's not a mock exam. It is a decision-making guide. So you can use it with other mocks that you already have. You can go onto YouTube and use free mocks and really train your brain to use that task analysis in the moment to figure out how to decipher the questions in a way that's a bit more organized. I wish I would have thought of this when I took the BCBA exam, but now I look at it as, okay, I designed this as a neurodivergent person, that I need a clear-cut list because I will get in there and start panicking. It'll be too many words on the page. My mind will go blank. So I needed something that I could reference for every question just about, rather than memorizing all these different formulas. I wanted to make something super clear-cut because I kept tutoring people for the RBT and the BCBA exam and the BCABA exam where they knew the content, but it was about the strategy. And I'm like, you don't need to go back and study Cooper. You need to figure out how to decipher these questions and how to really understand what they're asking. So yeah, it's a decision-making tool, really. And I had someone join last week. I've been posting about it like crazy because I was so excited. She found me the night before her BCBA exam, and she went from 355 to 388 within one day after purchasing this. So I reached out to her. I'm like, girl, thank you for telling me that, because I wasn't sure if it was going to be useful to people, but that gave me all the encouragement I needed to keep going, because that's a big jump. And she's like, my score improved so much just in one day. She's like, if I keep practicing and using it and really understanding how to apply this decision-making framework to other questions, she's like, I'm going to pass. I'm like, yeah, you are. Okay. All right. Well, welcome tonight, guys. We are doing our Tuesday exam strategy for everybody, RBTs, BCBAs. And I need to change this because I know that the BCABA erasure is real and I don't want to contribute to that. I just forget sometimes. So that includes BCABAs as well. And first I'm going to go through the two different resources that I have. If you were here last week, you heard me talk about these. But after I do this, I want to pivot into something different. I want to try to apply some of these strategies to a mock exam. And we're going to kind of go through it together. And I alternated it where one question is for BCBAs and BCABAs. The next question is for RBTs. So everybody gets, contact with a mock question. It's not just all one. So let's start with the keywords. Oh, well, first let me introduce myself. If it's your first time here, my name is Brittany. I'm a BCBA and I have my own business. And one of the things that I do within my business is I come up with different tools and strategies to help solve problems. And what I notice from tutoring people for both the RBT and the BCBA exam is a lot of patterns. I kept coming across people who know this content. They understand. In their jobs, they're doing applied behavior analysis all day, right? But it was something about this exam that it wasn't translating. And what I learned from tutoring people and talking them through different questions is this isn't necessarily a knowledge or a content-based issue. This is a strategy issue. And when you've done everything that you can, you're studying, and you feel like you're not retaining anything, what does that do to your motivation? What does that literally do? I mean, I'll speak for myself. What did that do to my self-esteem? Like, it tanked it. Like, what am I not doing right? I'm cracking open these books. I'm rereading these chapters. I'm still not getting it. I mean, I was in grad school. I'm like, literally, am I dumb? Like, I didn't know that. So you guys are not. These exams are meant to be tricky. There's a way to read them. There's a way to decipher through the content. So I started thinking, we need more strategy. We need to really break this down into a task analysis. Like, this is a big, big step, right? Passing these exams. How do I break this down and make it more accessible to where I'm also building a bit of momentum for you guys, to where you're feeling more confident that this is a skill set in some ways that you absolutely can attain. And we'll go into both different resources that I have here. But the main thing with what I have here on the left, the SDPEA framework, when you're taking your BCBA exam, you get that little whiteboard. I wanted people to just be able to write down their letters. They get in there, you're already nervous. Oh, my highlighter's over there. Sorry, this is a light color. My highlighter is not near me. You get in there, you're on your whiteboard, and those really faint, and you can just write SDPEA on it. And when you are freaked out in the moment, you're not understanding, you are in panic mode, you can look down those letters. They each stand for essentially a step of what to do. And you might be reading it and saying, I don't understand this question. I don't know what it is they want me to do. But I have a plan, I have a framework, and I can go through each step and use the information that I have here, use my steps to help me find the evidence that supports my answer choice. And that's the best that I can do, So we'll go through that. And the keyword guide, that's what we're going to start with, because I do think that is a good place to start, is just noticing the different details and information that you see that comes up. And in many cases, there are certain words that are meant to be like an SD or a signal pointing you to the right answer. And it's very easy when people are reading these questions to pay attention to the information that doesn't really matter. So this keyword guide is meant to, again, help you build that momentum and apply it to maybe mocks you've already purchased, mocks that you might find for free on YouTube, and kind of keep doing that over and over to build up your confidence in your skill set. Because I'm telling you, when you can piece apart these questions and really zone in on what's important and look for those cues, you're going to feel much more confident, and you're not even going to want to second guess yourself as much. So I will show you guys that in a moment. That's so relatable. Yeah, seriously. It's and I every single time that people take these exams and don't do well, it makes people feel like they're not capable when everybody's brain works a little bit differently. And I had not seen any resources that really emphasize the strategy aspect of it. And after tutoring so many different people, and they know this stuff, it's not translating. It just made me feel inspired to think, okay, what can I create for people that they're going to be able to use and replicate over and over? Because you guys are very intelligent, and I just know how that feels of not doing well on an exam, putting all my heart and energy into it, and just feeling like I'm dumb. Like honestly, I just really did not feel very intelligent. But I learned how my brain worked, and I hope that these strategies help you guys too. Both of the things that you see here on the screen, the blue here, the SDPEA framework, that is $9.99, and it comes with a full YouTube video that's almost a mini course of how to apply the framework. But then you get that full guide that's like, I think 25 or 26 pages. So that is in my stand store, this here. And then what we're going to start with, the keyword-based guide, is also my stand store. The price is going up after this week. Like when I'm looking through it, it is really good. Like I can actually confidently say that this is good. And I don't know. I'm very proud of myself for making this, because I made it in Canva, and I was looking through it today. I was like, this is legit. Like this is really nice. It's $2.99, okay? I had it for $4.99. I wanted to kind of give a jump on it. So if y'all see it tonight and you like it, get it, because the price is going up to $4.99, which honestly isn't even much, but I'm just telling you. All right, well, let's get started with our keyword guide. So I'm going to take this off and pull this up. Start with our keywords. All right. And if any point the sound goes out or anything like that, please just let me know. You know how it goes sometimes. Okay, let me try to get this. All right, I want to make sure you guys can see me and this. Do you tutor? I keep failing my exam. Yes, I do. There is a link in my bio, and I did have to switch around some things in my stand store because I kept having people make appointments and not show up, and I was like, my calendar was a hot mess because of that. So what you'll see is it is $30 essentially for the call, but that $30, if you end up booking a service with me, I just subtract that from the total fee. So whatever the total fee for tutoring is, or mentorship or supervision, I just would take that out. If you don't end up getting a service, I still give you a coupon so you can get like a product with like a nice size discount on it. So that is linked in my bio as well. For you to have that one-on-one time with me and us to kind of look at your grid together. I just had someone book a call with me last week. We looked at her grid. We're meeting next Saturday again, and we kind of came up with a plan of how to help her. So we're gonna, meet on Saturday and do that. Okay, so guys, I'm starting with the keyword guide here, and I'm not gonna show you everything because it's already $2.99, so I can't show you everything, but I can show you a little bit. This is a keyword-based guide for the RBT, BCABA, and BCBA. So the whole point of this here is to really help you guys focus on keywords, and I call them concept clusters or like phrases. And someone said, this weekend I looked at the pass rate for the board exam in 2020. It was 60% and 25 to 51%. Oh, went down to 51%. Why do you think it decreased? I think that it honestly is the fault of some of these programs out here that are not preparing people for the exam because they're not doing a deep dive of the material. Because when I have tutored some people and I've asked them about their program, they're like, it was super easy. I'm like, wait, what? Like, yeah, we just like did discussion posts and, wrote a paper. It didn't sound like it was intense enough. So I think that's a big part of it. It's not your fault. I think that it's the way that some of these programs are not. So intro page, blah, 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 blah. We know why this exam is hard. We don't need to go through that. But what I do have in here is the steps for answering these questions and also the keywords. It's meant to create familiarity. It's very important to know what decision they're asking you to make. And for the purpose of the BCBA exam, I'm definitely in the process of putting together some additional resources that kind of help you better understand when to make certain decisions, because I see that on the BCBA exam a lot. Which is best, which is next, which is, they love to do that. So I'm in the process of coming up with something like that. But for anyone, whether you're RBT or BCBA, pay attention to what it says here. When you're stuck between two answers, it usually means both sound plausible. And I think we all know that. It's not that the other choice is wrong or even unethical. It's just not fitting what the information is given to us in this moment. And the keyword guide is meant to kind of help you pay attention to, especially when you're down to those last two, doing a second scan on the test of like, all right, what keywords, what phrases am I missing or not including? That's going to help you even more with the process of elimination when you get down to those last two answers. You want to look at what's already been done, what data is available, and what the role requires. Now, what the role requires, that is definitely going to be under the RBT section. Because on the RBT exam, what's coming up over and over and over is this your role or not? Like, is that what you should be doing? You can provide data, you can provide notes, but should you be making certain kinds of decisions? So for the RBT exam, that is something you definitely want to keep in mind of writing down, even if you need to put it in a column. All right, let's say you have a piece of paper and you're just writing down what is an RBT role, what is a BCBA role, to compare and contrast. I'm a very visual learner. When I was in grad school, I was not yet diagnosed with ADHD, and I constantly found myself doing things like that to kind of help the information become more accessible to me. Literally writing it down, comparing and contrasting. And I know not everyone is into AI. That's fine. But one of the things that you could do is maybe explain RBT role, BCBA role. What are a list of roles or decisions? That's within the BCBA scope and the RBT scope. Because for RBTs, that'll get you tripped up. Of like, ooh, that's not to make. Your answer choice should confirm evidence and details that you can actually match in the question. So I kind of put different tips in there for you guys throughout the entire thing. All right, what this guy will help you do, we already know that. But I will scroll. I don't want to show you guys all the steps, but I go through and kind of talk a little bit about steps of action. Now, this short steps 1 through 4 is expanded in the blue SDPEA guide I was talking about. Like, I link it here for you so you can kind of see what that looks like. But these are the first 2 steps. There's 4 that I kind of outline here. Well, let me start at the top. ABA exams are decision-based. Success depends on recognizing patterns, understanding why an answer fits the situation, ruling out the options that don't match the evidence. And as I said, you're going to see that word a lot throughout this guide. And when you're reading notes, I found this to be a problem for me. Like, I'm very bad at finding the main idea to this day. It's like when I was highlighting notes, it's like, okay, so we don't highlight everything. That's not the point. But that was hard for me. I don't know. Maybe that's my ADHD, my own neurodivergence. But when you're highlighting notes and you kind of just are highlighting everything, that might translate into when you're on the exam, you're kind of like taking in too much information when it's not really important. So part of this guide is meant to help you pay attention to really what's highlighted without being highlighted. Like you'll see as we kind of go through. But step one, identifying the decision. And identifying the decision definitely fits for both, but I'd say for BCBAs more so. For BCBAs, there are many next, first, best type of wording, but there's also words that are highlighting, is this about intervention, assessment, data, ethics? Are they asking you what to do, what caused something, or how to evaluate? You really want to be able to pick that information out. And for step two, really filtering the details. Not all the information matters. And what you really want to pay attention to, and this is a skill set that develops with time. So I don't want, if you're reading this and you're like, I don't really understand what you mean by that. As you practice, you will. You want to pay attention to what changed, what stayed the same, what information is missing, and prioritize. Figuring out what the extra details are that you don't need. As you build your skill set, you will. Big words that don't change that. These are some details I wanted to kind of include there. All right, so we'll go through just a couple of these, and then I don't know, maybe we'll switch over to the mock exam and kind of apply some of this information. So as you'll see here, I put in different keywords and, as I call them, concept clusters. This is for RBTs. What are cues that signal outside of your scope? Design, modify, evaluate. When you're seeing those kind of words, you need to kind of really zone in on that, right? Cues that signal design versus implementation, and quick decision checklists and ethics tips. So I really thought of it all, including what are different study tips for just being consistent, right? How do you maintain your momentum? And I love getting feedback from you guys that this is helpful to you. We will go to the framework later, because first I want to kind of go through some practice with you. I'm doing TikTok from my computer, and the orientation is a little bit different. So if you can't see something, just let me know. But I want to do a little bit of an exercise with you guys. So one question is for BCBAs. The next question, is for RBTs, okay? So we're going to go question by question, and let's try to look for key information, maybe some things we want to highlight together, and get used to looking for those keywords, key phrases. So let me pull up the other portion on my phone. Okay, here we go. Okay. I appreciate it. I feel like everything in this field is so expensive. I know. I met with this girl. She's like, oh, I've spent like $300 on. So please, I really appreciate you guys, your support on these. I do put a lot of hard work into making them for you, but I understand how difficult these exams are. Like I said, I was a really bad test taker most of my life. Like I literally just thought I was like dumb. And now I just realized my brain works in a different way. So I want other people to understand that too. Like, you're not dumb, okay? You can do this. You just need a plan. You need a strategy. You need some support, right? Okay, so this is how we're gonna structure this, guys. The questions alternate. One question is going to be for BCBAs, BCABAs, and then the next question is going to be for RBTs. And what I'm going to do is pull up each question and I'm going to read it out loud, give people time to look through it, and then I'm going to kind of like we're going to highlight some of the key information that you guys think is sticking out. This is meant to be an exercise that I want you all to replicate with any other study resources you have. So before we even scroll down to the answer key, we'll kind of talk through the question. So if you want to join the live for the question, I can send you an invite. You can say like, well, this is the things that are, what is the word I'm looking for? These are the things that are standing out for me in the question. This is what I see. This is what I think. So then before we even look at the answer choices, we're using some of our tools to break it down a little bit more. So if that's something you want to do, just, send me a little emoji or say like me in the chat if you want to explain to the class like what you think is going on in this question and what they're aiming at. Okay. So let's start with question number 1. A BCBA is reviewing baseline data for a client who engages in aggression during instructional demands. Baselines show high variability and a slight decreasing trend, and data were collected by multiple technicians using different task materials and prompting styles. After an intervention phase begins, aggression decreases further, but the BCBA also notes that task difficulty was reduced and session length was shortened due to staffing constraints. The caregiver reports satisfaction and requests immediate expansion of the intervention to school. From a scientific and ethical standpoint, what is the primary concern with concluding the intervention caused behavior change? Okay, that's a long question, but they are long questions. So what are some keywords sticking out to you guys or key phrases? And take a second to read it because I know this is a long question. So take your time. And then I'll go through and highlight what you guys say because I have it on my other screen. Okay, so I am going to highlight some things that are definitely, I wrote these, but some things that are definitely sticking out to me as an example. All right, so we're reviewing baseline data. That's important because that's all we have right now is baseline data, okay? The sessions show high variability. A decreasing trend. And, collected by multiple technicians. Okay. So you guys kind of see where I'm going with like, let's look at some keywords, key information that's kind of sticking out. But someone said too many constraints. First, high variability and baseline immediately. No, we wait for stability. I like what you're saying. And clinicians are using different materials, different prompting styles. So to me, it's like, the procedural integrity might be a bit low, right? Because, I mean, you're using different task materials, like that could be seen as a positive generalization. But using different prompting styles, like, something might not be followed, something might not have been explained correctly. We don't know yet. BCBA notes that task difficulty was reduced and session length was shortening due to staffing constraints. So it sounds like there's not a lot of consistency, right? And thank you for the roses, guys. Thank you. Sometimes I don't even see them. All right, I'm gonna scroll down to the answer choices in a second. Task difficulty reduced, session length was shortened, a lot of inconsistency, right? The caregiver reports satisfaction and requests immediate expansion. Okay. Here are answer choices. Okay, let me do it like this maybe so you guys can see everything. Caregiver reports satisfaction and requests immediate expansion of the intervention to school. What is the primary concern with concluding the intervention caused behavior change? And you guys hit a lot of this already. Like, it's a lot going on. So how do we know what works? How do we know what is responsible for the change in behavior? Is it that the task difficulty was reduced? Maybe that's maybe that was helpful, but how do we know? All right, so I'll be quiet and give you guys a second. What do you think? Okay. Task difficulty changes to we need to analyze the data and reassess. No internal validity. Ooh, I like the words you're using. Okay, so what answer do you think? Because to me, this is one of those questions where it's like, I don't know. I could see somebody saying like, I could see someone being down to 2 on this one. Oh, yay, you guys are going to connect. That makes me happy. What is the primary concern? Okay. All right. I'm going to say like if I have more than one answer and if there's a lot of like dead air, then we'll just go ahead and, I'll give you guys an answer. But it is C. They're saying, what is the primary concern with concluding that the intervention caused behavior change? We don't have a demonstration of experimental control. If we're looking at this through the 7 dimensions of ABA, it's not analytic. It's like, how can you reliably say what changed behavior without clear data to support that? Now, someone might say this one, baseline length was insufficient. That could be true, but there's not enough information to support that. But I could see someone maybe choosing one because it's like, oh, well, what's the concern? Oh, well, they didn't have enough baseline data. They might read it as high variability, baseline sessions showing high variability and a slight decreasing trend. Someone might read that and say like, oh, well, the data link was insufficient because there's too much stuff going on. But we don't know that, right? If we're looking at the details, we are eliminating what doesn't fit. Care report introduces bias. No. The decrease is clinically significant regardless of control. What does that mean? Like, what do you mean by that? Now, for me, maybe I might go to these last two, but if I go back to the question and I'm looking for proof to support, let's say I wanted to choose B. Okay, yeah, what if I wanted to choose that? If I wanted to choose this and I was stuck between B and C, I'd be like, okay, so I want to choose baseline length was insufficient. How do I know it's insufficient? Where can I go back to the question and reliably see that information? So even if I wanted to pick that and I'm a little bit confused by the word confounding variables, it's like, well, if I have to choose between two, I don't have proof that the baseline length was insufficient. Information I have, even if I don't fully understand what the word confounding variables means, I'm going to choose C. So that's the really great thing about paying attention to keywords and phrases and pointing out details and information is sometimes even if you feel like you don't know what the hell they're talking about, it's like, okay, at least I can go back and do some matching. Like, where can I support my answer with evidence? All right, good. Let's move on to RBTs. All right, sorry, y'all. I hate, now that I've been making so much stuff in Canva, I actually hate editing in Word now with a passion. All right, let me zoom in a little bit for you guys. Okay, now this is for our RBTs, okay? So RBTs, if you're still here, after I read the question, if there's keywords or phrases that are sticking out to you, let me know and I will highlight them as well. And then after we kind of talk about the question a little bit, then we will go to the answer choices. You're implementing a behavior intervention plan for aggression maintained by escape from demands. Okay, there's one thing I want to preface this by, because if you follow me, you know that I post a lot about assent, neurodivergent affirming practices. Unfortunately, our exams do not reflect that yet. So if you see language up here that's like extinction or escape, maintain, extinction, or, you know, even if it says something about PECs, it's like, unfortunately, that's the way that the exam is still written. So I don't want to set you up to not identify those things. So if you see those things, just that's my disclaimer. I wanted to try to get these questions together as close as I could. So that is my disclaimer. Anyway, let's start over. You're implementing a behavior intervention plan for aggression maintained by escape from demands. During the session, the learner begins showing early signs of escalation when a task is presented. The plan instructs staff to prompt a functional communication response and provide brief breaks on appropriate requests. A coworker suggests allowing the learner to escape immediately to keep things calm. What is the most appropriate action within your role? Now, this is an RBT question. You see it in purple. But what are some key things that are kind of sticking out to you? When I'm looking at RBT questions, I'm keeping in mind that they're following someone else's plan. So I'm going to highlight plan. Instruct staff to prompt. That's what the plan, that's what the plan says to do. And the RBT is following the plan. And provide brief breaks. Okay. Even when I'm doing this with you guys, sometimes I feel like I highlight too much, but I don't know, it's part of the exercise. Coworker suggests allowing the learner to escape. Oops, wrong purple. What is the most appropriate action? Okay, so let's look at this all on one page. Here's the question. These are the answer choices. I'm going to give you guys a second to answer. And you can answer even if you're a BCBA. I mean, RBTs if you're still here. And for RBTs, because you are in a certain scope of following the plan, of following what they wrote, and it does say you're implementing the behavior intervention plan, the plan instructs them to do this. So I get that question a lot of, well, if my BCBA is doing something I don't agree with, like, what do I do? I'm like, well, the scope is to inform the BCBA of the situation. I always tell them though, I'm like, bring data to support what you're saying. Unfortunately, I mean, and this is any job. This isn't like I'm shading my own professional people, but there are some BCBAs who maybe, I hate to say it, but it's like, because you're an RBT, they're like, oh, what do you know? But having that data there is like, look, this is the data that I took. I'm informing you of the situation. I think as an RBT, it's a good idea to have documentation to back up what you're saying. I love a good follow-up email. Thank you for talking to me about XYZ. This is what was discussed, because you're not going to be trying to lie on me or say, you know what I mean? It's like, it's good to have that documentation. So I always tell RBTs, like, do this, but as an additional backup for yourself as an RBT to protect yourself. Inform the BCBA of the situation, even if it's a verbal conversation. Follow up. It'll take you a few seconds. Follow up in an email, or it could be a text, but having something documented of like, you did what you were supposed to do. My RBT ethics code says I'm supposed to tell the BCBA, this is what I did. So at that point, they can't say, oh, I didn't know. You can pull up the receipts. Actually, on February 17th, I sent you this message. So, no. Okay, going back to a BCBA question. All right. A BCBA is asked by the administration to develop a treatment plan rapidly due to caregiver pressure. Only indirect assessment data are available and no direct observation has occurred. The caregiver insists the behavior is attention maintained because it happens when adults are nearby. Which action best aligns with ethical and clinical standards? Now, continuing with our little exercise of pointing out information, words, phrases. If you have some ideas, let me know. I'm happy to highlight them. So we only have indirect data, indirect assessment. There's no direct observation. Caregiver pressure. Okay, we'll highlight that. And this will happen, you know, there's a BCBA, they want that plan now. But there's a process. In order for me to give the best plan possible, I need more information. And we know, you know, caregivers, they have a lot on their plate. Sometimes they don't know what they don't know. I need to see it for myself, okay? Because, you know, you do a whole interview, they'll tell you, you're like, oh, okay. And there's elements of that could be true, but then you're like, oh, no, that's not it at all. I need to see. All right, let me scroll down to the answer choices. Which action best aligns with ethical and clinical standards? Implement attention extinction immediately. Design treatment based solely on caregiver report. Conduct direct observation to confirm hypotheses before finalizing treatment. Use punishment due to behavior severity. Like, there's obviously ones that you can eliminate right away. And let me tell you, working in school, sometimes this will happen. Not so much from teachers, but from administrators. Like, yeah. So this is what we think. We need a plan because he's doing this. Well, I need to see. Like, okay. I need to conduct my direct observation. You know, there are times when if you go by secondary report and then you see it for yourself, it's like, okay. And it's like a whole CEU I want to do when a parent or a teacher or someone else comes to you and they are framing it as this child is doing this, like framing it almost like the child is a problem. And then you get in there, you're like, okay, so let's talk about what you're doing. Like, how do you have those conversations? Because sometimes I'm like, well, he's doing this. I'm like, right, but you are denying him to have a simple break. Like, he asked so nicely. Or what I won't go on a rant, but like, I was working with this administrator. Like, this administrator and I were like in a meeting one time in a school, and they were talking about like the escalate, the calm down corner, and the child was using it beautifully. The adults escalated the situation. Like, he was there chilling, stimming, had his fidget. They're gonna be getting up in his face, and then he escalated. I'm like, that's not his fault. Like, he literally was in the calm down space, and you guys are coming into the calm down space and reminding him, well, you're gonna clean all this up. He's decompressing right now. Stop talking to him. Like, literally. But they framed it as like, well, I'm like, no. I was there. This child was in the cool down corner using it perfectly. Even the school psychologist agreed with me. She's like, yeah, that was on you. And they didn't want to hear that. But that's like a whole CEU I want to do. Like, how do you tell them, like, you're the problem? Not the problem, but you know what I mean. Teachers and their principals have their own way of doing things. And principals especially, like, don't even get me started. Like, you're not even in here most of the day. Like, why are you coming in and just like reminds me of my dad would go on business trips and he'd come back home like, you need to. I'm like, I'm sorry, who are you? Like, why are you telling me what to do? But anyway, okay, let's move on to RBTs. And same thing, we'll read through the question, then I'll pull up the answer choices. One of us is the problem and it's not me type of scenario. And how do you have those conversations in meetings? Things they don't prepare you for in grad school. How do you sit down with a parent or a teacher and you can't frame it as, well, you're escalating the situation? There's so much like social skills that comes into this job that I don't think we get a lot of practice with. And I want to do like a whole CEU series on how to have tough conversations with difficult people, because that happens. Don't get me started. I had one say my clothes are not dress clothes. We're not in dress code. I was in loose yoga pants. I could do a whole CEU on that. Yeah. Okay, this is for the RBTs. You're collecting frequency data on elopement during a community-based session. Another staff member consistently intercepts the learner before the elopement fully occurs, redirecting them back to the group. According to best practice, how should this be handled? The Crucial Conversations book is great for this issue. Ooh, let me write that down. I'm always reading books about that because when people come to me for mentorship, sometimes they're really scared. And I get this because I used to be this way. They're like, I don't know. I took this job and things are not the way they told me it was going to be. And I don't know what to say. And I'm like 13 years in. I'm like, you need to, in a professional way. But not everyone is comfortable with being direct. So I'm always trying to read books about how can I better support the people who come to me for mentorship of how do you have tough conversations in a professional way? Because you're representing yourself, you're representing, being a behavior analyst. You can't go in there popping off. You have to maintain your composure, your professionalism, and yeah, I've certainly worked with people that I think that they kind of had their mind made up about, I won't say me, but maybe strategies I was going to implement. And how do you even start a conversation with someone has said, yeah, that's not going to work. Yeah, that's not going to work. That has happened to me so many times. And I've learned how to sometimes have guided conversations where you kind of like help them come to an idea. And they're like, oh, well, what about this? And you're like, that's a great idea. Even though that's like basically what you said. Okay, so here are the answer choices. And you're collecting frequency data. According to best practice. What do you guys think? Okay, we have some disagreements, which I love to see. Okay, so someone said A and then someone said C. All right, this is question number 4. Now, one of the things I'm thinking of here. Okay, A and C. Okay, so the 2 answer choices that are coming up is follow the operational definition and note staff intervention as required, or A, count each attempt as full elopement. Now, thinking about the fact that this is an RBT, you would want to follow what the operational definition says. Someone said A, because you're not a BCBA, you don't talk to the staff. Now, what it did say, note staff intervention. It didn't say, you pull them to the side and say, like, stop touching my client. Like, we didn't. So that is actually a good distinction, though, because sometimes we're putting in information that's not there, because it didn't say that. It did not say, don't talk to the staff. It said, note staff intervention. The operational definitions are BCBA specific, and it will show how we need to track it. And sometimes this is where even, of course, me as a BCBA, I've had to go back and rewrite an operational definition because they would come to me. They're like, well, I don't know if this counts or not. And to me, I'm like, well, that's data to support the fact that this isn't a very strong operational definition. I need to re-edit this. And it does say here, according to best practice, how should the situation be handled? Now, we're following the operational definition, and we're going to note the staff intervention. Like, hey, does this still count? Like asking them, you're not taking it upon yourself. You're following the operational definition as is written, as you understand it. Because it doesn't tell us what the operational definition says. So I wouldn't want to count each attempt as full elopement because I don't have the operational definition. I don't want to choose that answer based off of information that I don't have. So I think that this question is one of those where, I mean, depending on different factors, A could be right. But if I wanted to choose A, I again would have to go back to the question, look at my evidence. Do I have the operational definition here? I don't. So I can't reliably say that that counts. And it's also because they are an RBT, you wouldn't want to go outside of your scope and be like, well, I think it counts. That's something that you would follow. You would do C. You would follow the operational definition as it's written, as you understand it, and note the staff intervention. So go to the BCBA and be like, hey, so another staff member came in and before they actually eloped, redirected them. Because that does happen all the time. It's like someone thinks that they're being helpful, right? Or like, oh, they're about to, let me help redirect. But according to the RBT role, you would follow it as written and just talk to the BCBA about it. Note staff intervention as required. So talk to the BCBA. Hey, like, does this still count? And also, like, is this a problem? Do you want someone outside of me to redirect? That's not your role anyway. Like, that would be for the BCBA to say. So the answer for that one would be C. But make sure you're reading it very, very quickly. Like, whoever was saying that it's not their role to talk to them, I like that you said that because that's something that someone might surmise from reading this, but it just said to note staff intervention. So this is why we practice. Okay, let me switch this one around a little bit. Okay. Let's kind of, I'm going to let you guys see the answer choices as you're going because some people like to see the answer choices. So I want to try different things with you guys. I don't want to do it the exact same for everyone. So let's try this one. Blocking the behavior is a consequence, so definitely note it. Ooh, good. I didn't even think of that. How do I put emojis on here? I don't know. I'm on my computer. That is a good catch. I didn't think of that. All right, let's look at this one. Oh, y'all fast. Okay. During functional analysis, the problem behavior occurs at moderate rates across attention, escape, tangible, and play. Sessions were run by different therapists at varying times of day, and reinforcement delivery was inconsistent. What is the most likely explanation for these results? Now, someone might jump. Because, I mean, honestly, when I'm thinking back to myself when I would take these exams, back in the day, I would have jumped to that probably. Like, oh, it's automatic reinforcement. But they're giving us a lot of different details, right? I might want to jump to pick that one, but again, I might be like, let's put it on the back burner for a second. We definitely know that we can cross out D. We have no information supporting that. Low motivation during assessment, like how will we even know that? Cross it out. How do you do? Okay, I'm not gonna worry about that. Multiple control requiring immediate combined treatment. That just sounds like words put together. What does that even mean? The answer is B. You guys are right. Now, does anyone want to hop on live and tell the class, like, when we're saying procedural inconsistency or lack of treatment integrity, what does that mean? Yes, that's what I was looking for, the strike through. I couldn't find it. I was like, wait, I don't know where that is. Where is it? Yeah, can you tell me? I don't know how, but that's exactly what I was trying to do. You saw me struggling. And we have, just to kind of reiterate some of our key phrases here, essentially across all conditions. All right. They said different therapists, different times of day. Like that's a lot of inconsistencies. Is all pointing back to inconsistent, you know? There's a lot of inconsistency with the procedure. Now, the question isn't asking why it's inconsistent, but we can kind of see from the information they're giving us that it could be a variety of factors. I mean, this isn't what they're asking about. I just kind of want to go through for the purpose of the task list. This also is kind of pointing to, varying aspects of the 7 dimensions. It could be that something isn't technological. Something isn't well written. It's not easy to follow. And that happens. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes we write something where we think that this is really clear, but then if a parent or an RBT goes to run it, they're like, this doesn't make sense. It's like you wrote it, it makes sense to you. Why isn't it A? Okay. And that's what I was saying, like, that's kind of why I wanted to put it up there as an option, is that's what it's kind of pointing to, right? It could point to that, but it's also saying that it's different therapists, different times of day, reinforcement was inconsistent. We don't have enough information to support that it's automatic reinforcement. And if there's all these other inconsistencies, I don't know for sure if it's automatic reinforcement or not. I would need more information to support the answer of A. Now, if I go, like, let's say you were stuck between A and B, because this happens a lot, right, on these exams where you're stuck between two. If I go back to the question and I'm saying, okay, which answer choice can I go back to the question and find more evidence for? We can look at this and say that we can find a lot more evidence to support B than we can support A. There's a lot of, now look, I wrote these myself, so bear with me. But inconsistency is all throughout this question. So if I'm stuck between these two and I'm like, ooh, I'm not really sure which one is better. If I go back, what can I point to in the question that can clearly emphasize or clearly show automatic reinforcement? I could infer, but I don't know for sure. And because I don't know for sure, that should give me pause to go back and say, like, okay, undifferentiated responding, even if you're like, ooh, what the heck does that mean? Procedural inconsistency. The procedure is not consistent. There's more information to support B than A, is how I would say it in the most succinct way. Could an automatic be ruled out because there is reinforcement being delivered? Well, no, because sometimes there's multiple, like, if someone is under the guise that it is automatic, people still deliver reinforcement. Like that does happen. So, I mean, in some cases, yes, but again, based on the information that you're being given in this question, I would need to have more. I would need to have more information. So when you're stuck, like, I want you to practice this in other mocks that you have and looking, even after you take it, going back at the answers that you chose or didn't choose and kind of look at, okay, what words in the question kind of match the answer choices? And are they somewhat interchangeable in a certain kind of way? That can help a lot of people. Because when you're down to those two, there are times where that other choice isn't necessarily wrong. It's not unethical, but which answer choice has more evidence to support it? Like, what do we know for sure, essentially? I'm gonna have to like format this better. All right. Moving on to an RBT question. A learner's program targets matching. It was B. Yeah, my bad if I didn't make that clear. I try to highlight it. B. Okay, RBT question. A learner's program targets matching identical targets. During the session, the learner begins correctly matching, let me edit this as I'm going, non-identical items that have not been directly taught. The learner remains engaged and responds independently. What do you do in the moment? For my RBTs, if you guys are still here. The learner. And with the RBT questions, remember your role. And it's hard because sometimes it's like, yeah, what the RBT was going to do, that's what I would do. But, you know, when people talk about RBT and BCBA as like nurse and doctor, well, sometimes I don't know if that's the best analogy. Because sometimes nurses, like, no more. A or B? Okay. Well, let's see, what can we highlight that we kind of know? What question? Excuse me, 6. Okay, they're correctly matching. I guess I'll highlight this, not been directly taught. Okay. A learner remains engaged, responds independently. What should you do in the moment? All right, so we've got some different answers here. Okay, does anyone who chose A want to come on and tell me why they chose A? I would say A because then this could lead to procedural inconsistency. Okay, that's a good observation. Monique. Someone said always reinforce the learner. Okay. So the answer for this one is B. Reinforce the responses and notify the BCBA of potential generalization. For A, that's where it can get a little bit tricky, right? Because it's like, well, it doesn't tell me to teach these, but you're not teaching them. They just got them right. So we would want to reinforce the learner, provide that positive reinforcement. So that can get a little bit tricky. Even for me, like I'm thinking about that as a BCBA, I'm like, that would get me confused. Reinforce, document, tell the BCBA. Because that happens sometimes, you might be in a session with someone and I don't know, I was working with, I was the BCBA. No, that's not a good example. One of the RBTs I was supervising one time, like I had a feeling that this client I worked with, like he could read. Like I felt like he knew a lot of sight words. I never had like tested them or anything because we were working on other things, but she had some like this sight word, like little puzzle piece thing. And she was like saying different words like see, and he just was like pointing to them randomly. And she's like, oh my gosh, yes, that's the right word. So she told me about it later. It's not like she turned it into a program. She didn't do those things instead of what we were doing. Although, like, even as a BCBA, like if I see my client can do something new that I didn't know they could do, I literally am like, okay, whatever else we had planned, like I don't care. Like I didn't know you knew this. But for the RBT side, it's like, that happens all the time. You observe that your clients can do something. It's not something that's in a plan anyway. So it's not like you're going against what the BCBA wrote. There's nothing to be written. It's just there is a response that the client has shown you, and that happens all the time. That happens all the time. So like when you really think about it, that happens naturally. What if the goals and baseline? Okay, but does it say that the goals and baseline? That would be different. If the goals and baseline, then you're not really providing anything. You're gathering your data. It's like neutral. So, but I like that question because that's something that someone might say. What if the goals and baseline? That's how I looked at it. What I keep highlighting and reiterating is evidence, 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 evidence. Like that could be, but can you reliably go back into this question and point out for me in this paragraph, where does it say that they're in baseline? So we don't want to add in information that isn't there. But I like that you guys are saying kind of how you're thinking and how you're looking at it. That's exactly what I do in the tutoring sessions. I'm like, well, talk me through it. Like, why would you choose A? Why would you choose B? And sometimes as we're talking through the question, I'll let them finish. But show me in this question where it says, and they're like, oh, wait, but that's good practice for you to realize like when you're doing that. So you're taking the real thing, you are less likely to make that error because you've made those errors when you were training your brain to go back to the question for evidence. So I'm going to switch screens for just a second. I talk about a framework of helping learn how to. Like that's what this is written to work as. Like it's move this down. This is meant to help you make decisions. So you'll see, like the E stands for evidence in this framework because I highlight that over and over and over again. Do you have evidence to support that? Does it say that they're in baseline? Does it say that they're doing this? If it doesn't, you need to look at it again, right? So that decision-making framework comes from this. This guide is really meant to help you have a plan rather than panicking. And this is an intro. So if you click on this in my bio and you want to see, I'm not going to play the video now, but me talking through part of the framework, that's what this includes. So you get the full YouTube video when you download this to accompany the guidebook. So it tells you how to use it, different patterns, anxiety tips. So you get both. So this is in my bio. Thinking this is what you want to look into. But you get a little preview of what the framework is if you click on it, and you'll see the YouTube video. All right, let's move on to a BCBA, BCABA question. All right, hopefully you guys can see that pretty good. Okay, what time is it? And I'm gonna stay on until 8, and then I have a lot of like Bravo shows. I'm watching Real Housewives of Potomac. So at 8-ish, then I'm gonna log out. Okay, frequently skip. Maintenance and generalization probes show regression when prompts are removed. Okay. What should the BCBA prioritize to address this issue? Let's see. Staff is running fidelity. Okay, a lot of people are saying B. And some of them, when you're taking the exam, are so obviously wrong. You know, those old school ideas of, process of elimination, they work. All right, you guys are correct. The answer is B. Another CEU idea, this as, y'all know, it happens. Because, how do I put this? When you are a BCBA supervisor and you have to supervise a whole team of people, you're not going to be there all the time, right? You only can go based off of really what you see. Yes, you can look at the data, but that can be skewed. If something's not written well, and then a technician needs to be trained, or you need to model for them more what it looks like, that's one thing. But what happens when you become the BCBA and you have to have that tough conversation with maybe an RBT that, hey, they just rushing, they're trying to get through the session, they're like, whatever. These are the things that they don't talk to you about in grad school. Oh, if this RBT isn't taking correct data because they're chilling today, how do you address that? How do you talk to them about that? And those are things that no one really taught me in grad school. So when I had to lead a team of people, and when I had to pull someone to the side for not taking correct data, it was awkward. It was awkward and my stomach hurt the whole morning because I knew I had to have that conversation with them. I hated it. But that is a part of the job sometimes. It's part of the job. And a book that someone recommended earlier that I would like to check out, Crucial Conversations. But if you are a student analyst and you're here, and honestly, I don't care if you've been a BCBA for 1 year or 7, reading books about conflict resolution, how to, different ways of reprimanding people if needed. How do you do that? And I still read books and listen to podcasts about what are different methods and ways to do that. And everyone has developed their own kind of style, but this question just kind of made me think about the fact that there are some times when you're a BCBA where you do have to have really tough conversations with an RBT who maybe isn't doing what they're supposed to do. And how do you go about that? There are some things that you can do, I think, ahead of time, but there's always going to be times where in any role you ever do, you're going to be working with someone who maybe is like, look, I'm just here to get this check, like whatever, like I don't care. And you have a responsibility to make sure they're holding up the RBT ethics code, that they're not falsifying data. And I'll tell you, like, read those books, find a mentor, talk to someone now, because it is really awkward when you're like, I don't know how to do that. That is not on the task list. Or when I was a clinical supervisor and my boss randomly was like, hey, so they've been on a performance improvement plan and we're done with that. I need you to call him today at 3 and fire him. I'm like, wait, what? You're not going to be on the phone with me or give me a task analysis? I didn't know how to fire anyone. Like, I did not want to do that. It was very awkward. I had to go on. This is pre-AI. I had to go online, Google how to fire someone, and write a script for myself because I didn't know what I was doing. So those are the things I really think that if you have a BCBA supervisor, you're a student analyst, talk to them about that, because there's ways for that to fit under personnel and supervision management, whatever it is, section I, to also talk about, so how do you handle these other things that come up that have nothing to do with the client, that are all about responding to a challenge with a staff member? Make sure you guys are practicing that stuff too, because it's real awkward if you don't. Like, maybe some people just are better at that, but that was hard for me. Anyway, a caregiver asks you to stop running a program because it feels too hard for the learner. The program is a part of the active treatment plan and has recently been reviewed by the BCBA. What is the most appropriate response? This question is making me think of someone asked me if I could do a PDU for RBTs, where they're like, I want a BCBA to give a presentation for RBTs when the parent hates the BCBA and loves the RBT. Like, how do I talk about that? I had to think, like, what do you want me to say? Like, what would the presentation be about? But I just think that's funny because that definitely happens. Or sometimes you just have the RBT is there 3 days a week. You might have a better rapport with them. But when the RBT is in the middle because like the parent hates the BCBA, like, that is funny to me. It definitely happens. Okay, yeah, you guys got this one. This one's pretty easy. Explain that you must follow the BCBA. Yes, and there's different ways you can explain that, in a very simple way. Like, well, my role as an RBT is to deliver the plan as written by the BCBA. But I hear your concerns. I'm going to write them down here, show it to them. Did I get everything? and let the BCBA know. And then from there, it's the BCBA's role to step in. Yes, it is both. So one question is for RBTs, and then the next question is for BCBAs and BCABAs. I am in the process of making a whole experimental design workbook for BCBAs and BCABAs. If anybody wants to help me with that, reach out to me. You can have it for free. Like, you can help me make it. That's good practice. You can have it free of charge if you want to help me make that, because I need some help. Like, I'm really, it's going to be a great workbook for experimental design. Like, I've already started making some of the graphs, but if anybody wants to help me, please reach out to me. I would love that. And that's going to be great practice for you to actually go through section D. So you get some free tutoring in there. So reach out to me. Okay. Please send me a message. No, I would love that. And I'll even throw in something from the Stan store as an additional token of appreciation. You can have whatever you want from the Stan store. So help me, please. Okay, a BCBA observes an RBT consistently adding extra prompts not specified in the program to prevent learner errors. Over time, the learner begins to wait for prompts before responding independently. What is the primary concern with this implementation pattern? This one's kind of, I love you guys are using these what's the word? Oh my God, my brain. You guys are using the Cooper terms. I love it. Somebody said observer drift and prompt dependence. Oh, sorry. Wait, oh, hi, Jen. Okay, you guys are correct. Does anyone want to tell me why? And what do they mean by weakened stimulus control? What does that mean? They're already becoming prompt dependent in the example. They're waiting for prompts. Okay, they're learning. The learner is waiting for prompts instead of moving towards independence, because prompts are supposed to be, exactly, you got it. Prompts are supposed to be faded. They're supposed to be faded. Okay, so Maddie, what they're asking is, what is the primary concern with this pattern? So whether or not, whether the SD is evoking the behavior or not, isn't what they're asking about. They want to know, what is the concern with this implementation pattern? So we were talking about earlier, when you're reading different questions, sometimes there's answer choices that are down to there's like two that are left, right? And one of the answer choices might not necessarily be wrong, and it might even be pointing towards that, but we don't have enough evidence to support that. So when you are stuck between those last two answers, reminding yourself to go back to the question and which answer choice has more evidence in the question itself to support. So this is a good thing that you make these, I won't even say mistakes, that you have these observations now. You are taking your exam, whether it is the RBT or the BCBA exam, you can kind of stop yourself and redirect, like, wait, that could be true, but do I see, like, if we're being very literal, if we're being like methodological behaviorists, can I observe and see and measure essentially that the evidence is here? It's not that I infer or, well, they're probably going to, or I think they might. It's like, no, what does this little paragraph say? What is fact? What is given to us for sure? So practice that when you're doing your mocks, and I bet you over time you're going to stop yourself from doing it. And you'll notice that when you're taking your exam, you're like, oh wait, that could be true, but I don't have enough evidence to support that answer right now. Based off of what I have, this other one seems like the best answer. And I hate that, which is the best. I hate those questions. I hate them. But because for me as a neurodivergent person, it's like, okay, wait, now you've got me overthinking, and I wish I had a space here where I could like type out my reasoning. Like, but what if, because that's how my brain works, All right, we'll do one more RBT question and one more BCBA question, and then we'll kind of just do general Q&A for a little bit, and then we'll end it tonight. This is an RBT question. During natural environment teaching, okay, yeah, you guys can see. During natural environment teaching, a learner independently requests a preferred item using a phrase different from the exact target, but clearly communicates their need. The learner is calm and engaged. What should you do? We're seeing B, 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 but A is crazy. Girl, I'm going to comment on that in a moment. You guys are correct. Because look, what can I say? Part of the reason why I'm very passionate about talking about different practices I use, and some may follow me and say, like, you are always hating on ABA. No. As a scientist, I'm very passionate about the fact that we can evolve some of our methods that we once thought was the best. There was a point in time when I became a BCBA back in 2013 where I was doing this. Awful, because it's like, why would you withhold an item? Oh, we're going to increase motivation or increase anxiety or completely contribute to communication now being an aversive event, because you're like, say it. Like, that's so crazy. But that is something that I used to do as a BCBA. That's something that, unfortunately, that is a practice that some people still use. But that's kind of why we have to keep talking about it, so that if a parent sees someone withholding the item from their child until they say exact phrase, they're like, wait, why? Why are we doing it that way, Why is it better to use other methods, right? So for me and my content and on my page, like I always like to talk about, like, for me, how much I've grown as a BCBA in 13 years, because there are things that were evidence-based that I was doing at the time, where now I'm like, okay, there might be evidence to support this, but we also have other evidence to support the contrary. But there's still people who will withhold items until phrases are used. But hey, this is why we talk about it. So maybe by you modeling a different way, they can see a different method. And I have someone who does mentorship with me, and she kind of talks about how when she is working with a new team of RBTs, sometimes she has to model things for them that are brand new, because they're very used to withholding the item until the exact phrase is used. Say cars. And kind of helping them unlearn that pattern of, okay, there's alternative ways to where we can still promote language. We can model. There's lots of other things that we can do. Withholding an item can create so much anxiety. It's like, what if they're in a moment where they just are not able to produce the sounds? We're going to not give them that item? So that's, if you guys have been following me for a while, like, yes, I have my criticisms, but because I know that as scientists, we're supposed to evolve and grow, but also that it's okay to talk about the things that, hey, maybe they are evidence-based, but that doesn't mean that they are the best choice, right? So I'm glad that someone pointed that out. Like, A is crazy. It is, but I can sit here and tell you that that's something that I definitely was taught at one point to use, but I know better, I do better, and I use my platform to expose other people to, like, hey, these are other things I've learned. These are things I've learned from collaborating with speech therapists that I have seen and have the data to support. Look at this burst in language as a result of no longer withholding items, so if you're new to following me, I talk about those kinds of things a lot because I think they're really important, really, really important. All right, let's do one more, and then we will do a little bit of like Q&A, I guess, before I go. Response generalization is happening. Oops. Q&A in like 3 minutes. A school team requests this. A school team requests removal of all scheduled breaks from a student's plan to prepare them for real life. The student's problem behavior decreased after learning to request breaks appropriately. How should the BCBA respond? You guys, this has literally happened to me working in a school. Oh, somebody else said, I work in a school setting. This happens all the time. It literally does. It's working. So we should stop now. How does that make sense? How does that make sense? Somebody said, oh, now they care about generalization. That is hilarious. Yeah, let's just... Well, they're not going to have breaks in real life. I'm like, yeah, why do you think we're all addicted to substances? Like, yeah, we don't have enough freaking breaks. Like, isn't that telling us something? Like, this is kind of a problem. Advocate for maintaining function-based supports. And yes, explaining your rationale, having the data to support. Hey, look at where we were prior to putting in scheduled breaks, getting data from the teachers. I mean, look, I know it might not be like the most behavioral, but like I even have gone and like interviewed teachers and be like, hey, scale of 1 to 5, like one being is still the same, 5 much better. Since he's been or she has been allotted her scheduled breaks, how things change in your class. Oh, wow, a 4, a 5, a 4, a 5. So if I go and I take that to administrators, I'm like, so this is the data to support the fact that these breaks are working. Now, we could have a different conversation about if the administrators are saying that we don't have the staff to support the breaks or what have you. That's a different kind of conversation. But I definitely have been in meetings where they're like, well, the breaks are working, so, we should just like stop that. Or I don't think he needs them anymore. Like, no. Hope that the structure tonight that you guys liked with the exam so you can actually practice. I, in particular, really liked how some people were saying out loud, well, why isn't it this answer? Why isn't it that answer? Because that only helps you build that practice and that skill set now so that you are working through that here and not on the exam. So I'm open to any feedback though. So if you have any ideas or things that you would more specifically like me to look at, like someone said they would like to go through just an ethics portion, like 1 week, if I could just focus on RBT and BCBA ethics. So tell me also different things that you would like to see, but for the most part, it's going to be strategy, a little bit of mock exam review, some games. But I want to also start doing a little bit of giveaways. So share my live. Follow me if you're not already following me. And before I go, thank you everyone for engaging, sharing, liking the gifts. You guys make me want to keep going. I have been consistent. This is my 2nd week in a row doing this. So thank you for showing up. And I will see you guys later this week. But I hope everyone has a great rest of their evening. And I will see everybody very soon. All right. Good night, everybody.